Hey friends, Peggy Hall back with you from the healthyamerican.org with continual coverage of the Maui fire, the devastation, in my view, what was not a natural incident or event. And there are so many people that are covering this as well and bringing more and more information. I have an entire Maui fire list, which I will link for you at the end of this video. And also I want to make sure that you watch my video all about the failed emergency response, because that fits right into the video that I'm doing for you now. And I also want to say that my heart and prayers are with all of those people that are suffering, that have lost loved ones, that have lost their homes, their livelihood, their hope, their way of life. I have been to Hawaii many, many times over my lifetime. It's very much a vacation destination for those of us that live in California and all over the world. And so the fact that this happened on Maui in Lahaina, which was a very sacred area and is a sacred area for the Hawaiians, it was a first capital for that area. And so it has so many layers and levels of importance. And my heart literally breaks, especially when this was preventable. That's what I want to talk about. The headline that I have here for my video is global warming is the ultimate reason so many people perished. All right, that is an exact quote from Governor Josh Green. Many of you have said you don't even believe that's his real name, because when you think about it, Josh means to joke, to kid, to not tell the truth. Where you're pulling the wool over someone's eyes is when you say I'm just joshing you. And then of course, Green New Deal, which is how I refer to him. I've done several videos, and I hope that you will spend the time to watch those. You can watch on a double speed to go faster. He has said again and again that he wants Hawaii to be the first state that is going to be a model for other states and other countries in terms of being sustainable and resilient. I want you to listen for those words again and again: sustainability and resilience. In my second video for you today, I'm going to be covering the mayor of Maui. Now, keep in mind that both the mayor of Maui and the governor of Hawaii both were recently, this is their first year, all right, their first year in office. They were just selected. Oh, excuse me, I mean elected. Now, the mayor of Hawaii is a Hawaiian, but Josh Green is a haole. A haole means an outsider. He's not Hawaiian, although he's married to a Hawaiian, and he's been a politician for the last 20 years or so. He was also a medical doctor, and he was well known on the islands for pushing the cooties hogwash very, very strongly and doing all of the shutdowns, not allowing people to come on the island unless they, submitted to the nasal swab assault and other things like that. So he was very well known for tightening and pushing. Basically, he was the Fauci of Hawaii. So that's his background. He also has been speaking at the United Nations. And I brought this coverage. To my knowledge, I was the first person to break the story, and I'm glad that other outlets are running with it, that he literally said, we are going to build back better. I find that such an affront. It's such a criticism to the city of Lahaina, which is a historic city, and the layers and levels of sacredness among the Hawaiians there. I can't even begin to imagine what people are going through, although I do have Hawaiian friends, and I have haoles that live on the island and that live in Hawaii. And as I say, I've been there many times, so I have some sense of the Hawaiian culture and their deep sense of the land, the aina, all right? So the fact that this haole, Josh Green, comes in and says again and again that we are going to build back better, as if Lahaina wasn't good enough. And then he says we're going to build it with resilience. And this mayor of Maui says the same thing. So the counties in Hawaii are the islands. You've got the county of Maui. And then, of course, that is a part of the state of Hawaii. So these two characters, I believe, are in cahoots for turning this beautiful island paradise into their WEFer dream. Yeah, the WEF, the World Economic Forum. I've covered that in previous videos. Today, I want to share with you a very brief clip of exactly Josh Green saying global warming is the ultimate reason so many people perished. Now, I am still looking for the source video. What I'm going to share with you is a news coverage where this video was played. I always like to go to the original source, and I've been staying up till about 2 o'clock in the morning, watching all these videos, combing through them, looking for all of these words, because many people, when they are in a state of shock and denial and grief and overwhelm with this unbelievable trauma of this disaster, they're not going to be able to clearly and rationally listen to all of this. So that's why I am breaking it down for everyone. I do want to have the source video, and I will find that. Apparently he's broadcasting a lot on his Facebook channel. I've not been on Facebook for some time, but I will be looking there. So without further ado, that was just the background to let you know why I am bringing you this information today. And again, I've covered a lot on, I'm fully aware of the crazy things that are not adding up here. And I understand about the cheat of police, as I call him. Yes, he was involved in the Las Vegas fiasco. So many things don't add up there. I don't know how one person can have that much devastation. If anybody has ever used a bang bang before, it's very difficult to actually hit your target. So that raised a lot of eyebrows for a lot of people. And here he shows up on the scene again. I'm going to be bringing you more coverage on him, more coverage on this mystery Maui man in green that always appears to be snickering with his duper's delight. I'll be bringing you other duper's delight videos from people that I think are either just infiltrating this disaster for their own whatever reasons that they want to do. Maybe it's financial reasons. Maybe they just want to be on the news. Maybe they're setting up their own GoFundMe, but some of that just doesn't add up. I know that there are legitimately people who are suffering. By and large, they're not the ones that are contacting the news agencies to tell their story. There are some that are telling their story because the news is on the ground, but some of these things really don't add up. I'm going to continue to dig deeper. This one news story, I really like this eyewitness, and I'm going to share this with you. And then I'm going to tell you the questions that I have for Governor Green New Deal, because he is passing the buck big time. The other thing I want to say is this. The fact that he is pinpointing this disaster on global warming, that may see if you can follow my logic, and maybe see if you have the same conclusion. If he is going to pinpoint this on an act of God, an act of nature that might not be covered in people's insurance policies, because there are those riders, as they're called in insurance, where if there is an act of God, then you're not covered. So that also troubles me greatly. It troubles me greatly that I did a video yesterday. And what troubles me greatly about that video is that he says that he wants the state to take control of Lahaina. And then he also has said, and I'm going to bring this to you in his press releases, because Hawaii at Maui is now in a state of emergency, he can suspend any law he wants. That's what the Hawaiian state of emergency laws say. I'll be bringing that to you in an upcoming video. He can take people's private property. He obviously can take control of the public property. He can prevent people from moving in or out. And then he wants to prevent people from having their own will to sell their property. Now, you may be saying, Peggy, I don't want Oprah or BlackRock going in there and buying off people's property. Well, isn't it up to the individual landowner and homeowner to decide what they want to do with their property? I personally wouldn't want that. But if it's your property, you have the rights over that property. So why would Green New Deal be able to tell you that there is a moratorium on selling your land or your home? Maybe you need that money. Maybe you were planning on leaving Hawaii anyway. Maybe, and now you can't. So that's another thing that's troubling to me. We need to read between the lies. Whatever this guy is dishing out, you need to dig in and see if it makes sense and actually look at it from the other point of view. So I've got questions for Josh Green New Deal, and let's see how he passes the buck onto global swarming, as I call it. I'm going to share my screen, and we will go over to this news footage from ITV. That's what, yes, ITV News. It actually comes out of England. And I'm telling you, I think some of the other countries are doing a far better job of reporting the news than our own mainstream media merry-go-round. So let me unplug my audio so that you can hear this, and then I will break it down for you. Here we go.
Lloyd was an eyewitness to how this fire started.
And I saw a fire right next to the telephone pole, but the fire department was there. So they put it out, and I guess they contained the fire. And then around 12, 12:30, they noticed that the fire department left. Around 2 o'clock, 2:30, it started back up again, catching on to the houses. It caught onto the base yard truck, and then that caught on fire. Then it caught onto the house.
What was the wind like?
The wind at that point, was blowing at least 80 miles per hour. It was blowing.
So the fire was spreading.
The fire was spread.
This is sad. Even when the flames were right upon the homes of Lahaina, there was no evacuation warning. The town has 80 sirens, but all remain silent.
There is grief here in Lahaina, but there is also anger. People criticizing those early warning systems that were supposed to give them time to evacuate. But the fire spread so quickly here that by the time it reached their homes, it was already too late.
As the search for bodies continues, a search for answers now begins. The governor of Hawaii has in part blamed global warming.
That level of destruction in a fire hurricane, something new to us in this age of global warming, was the ultimate reason that so many people perished.
All right, I'm going to replay this for you because this is coming out of the United Kingdom. I know there is some accent there, so let me just go back a little bit. And this is important when he talks about the timing. I have another comment to make about this. Here we go.
Lloyd was an eyewitness to how this fire started.
And I saw a fire right next to the telephone pole, but the fire department was there. So they put it out, and I guess they contained the fire. And then around 12:30, they noticed that the fire department left.
Okay, so there was a fire earlier in the morning. Hang on one second. I understand this is a little easier audio to hear. There was a fire earlier in the morning, and he saw it. And there actually were firefighters on the scene. And they put that out. And then he said around 12:30, I believe he said they left. Then it broke out again around 2:30. Now, before we go back to the footage, I want to say something about this. There have been many conflicting reports early on, and perhaps because the eyewitness footage showed that the smoke was so thick that it looked like it was at night, and the fire continued to burn throughout the night. Some reports said that the fire broke out at night. I may have reported it that way in the very beginning when there was not very much information to go on. So now we're hearing from an eyewitness that the fire actually broke out around 2:30. Here's what I want to say. People are emailing me, and there are videos going around saying that the schools closed, several of the schools closed, the elementary schools closed because of the high winds. There was a high wind warning. And that reporting caused a lot of concern, understandably, for so many people, thinking that elementary school children would have been home alone while this fire was burning. So in the first place, if school is out probably in the afternoon, it would not have been that much different if the fire did indeed start around 2:30. I heard reports it was around 3:30. So in essence, it appears to me that children would have been home anyway. I also find it strange to think that an elementary school age child would have been home on their own. And from what I know and I've experienced of the Hawaiian culture, with all of the aunties and uncles and cousins and neighbors, you would never have a child really on their own. It's very likely that neighbors would have run. Think about your own situation. If you lived next door to a family that had small children, wouldn't you run over and say, and hope that they were okay, or maybe knock on their door and say, get the kids out? Or if you had children, don't you think you would not have left them at home if they were elementary age? So the reason I'm saying this is to allay some of the trauma that I have seen and I understand is going on, either unintentionally or intentionally. I will be talking a little bit later about the remains of those that have perished and a couple of other things that don't add up about that as well. As painful and tragic as it is, I still believe that there is misinformation, either unintentionally or intentionally. So this concept of, 8-year-olds being home alone while the fires were breaking out, I'm not seeing that the facts as we know it right now are lining up with that. It's very likely that the children were not left alone. They were left with somebody because of their age, and it was later in the day anyway. It wasn't in the morning. The early fire that broke out at 9:30 was extinguished, as many eyewitnesses have said. And then the firemen left, and then it came up later. So let's go back and we'll continue to listen, because I think this is very important, where Josh Green New Deal starts talking about what he's calling a fire hurricane. Let me know if you've ever heard that phrase before. I think that's a new one that the WEFers are sloshing all over us, just like the heat dome. That was a new one. And atmospheric rivers. Yeah, they come up with all of these new phrases to try to masquerade the evil, how can I say this, their techniques of creating these firestorms, because again, it does not look natural. It does not look normal. And then they come up with these names to make it appear as though it's some sort of meteorological event, and then blame it on global warming, so that then the next phase of their diabolical plan is to have the climate shutdowns, to have the increased climate taxes, to have more restrictive means in terms of your energy usage. And then when they're building back better Lahaina, that feeds right into the narrative of, oh, the alarm systems weren't going off. We better have much stricter surveillance. We better make sure that every house has a camera on it that the firemen can see. I don't know if that's the reality of what will happen, but my point is that they will use this devastation to say, we need to have you even more contained, more lockdown, more surveillance. And sadly, many people will go along with it, especially after being traumatized in this way. That's the way I see it. So let's go back to this footage. And here we go. I'm going to back up just a little bit because I wanted to see if he said the firemen left at 12:30 or if that's when the fire went out. But the point being, there was an early morning fire that was pretty much extinguished. And then in the mid-afternoon, the fire that was more devastating broke out. All right, here we go.
Fire department was there. So they put it out, and I guess they contained the fire. And then around 12, I guess 12:30, they noticed that the fire department left. Around 2 o'clock.
Okay, 12:30, the fire department left.
2:30, yeah. It started back up again, catching on to the houses. It caught onto the base yard truck, and then that caught on fire. Then it caught onto the house.
What was the wind like?
The wind at that point, the wind was blowing at least 80 miles per hour. It was blowing.
So the fire was spreading.
The fire was spread.
This is sad. Even when the flames were right upon the homes of Lahaina, there was no evacuation warning.
Even when the flames were right upon the homes of Lahaina, there was no evacuation warning. I think this plays into their narrative.
The town has 80 sirens, but all remained silent.
The town has 80 sirens, but all remained silent. I have an entire video about the failed evacuation emergency response.
There is grief here in Lahaina, but there is also anger. People criticizing those early warning systems that were supposed to give them time to evacuate. But the fire spread so quickly here that by the time it reached their homes, it was already too late.
As the search for bodies continues, a search for answers now begins. The governor of Hawaii has in part blamed global warming.
The governor of Hawaii has in part blamed global warming.
That level of destruction in a fire hurricane,
That level of destruction, a fire hurricane. All right, that's a made-up term.
New to us.
Is new to us, he says. Of course it's new because it's not natural.
In this age of global warming was the ultimate reason that so many people perished.
All right, I think you heard that. Doesn't he look so distraught, doesn't he? He just looks like he is overwhelmed with grief and emotional distress over this event that he has been very deeply involved in. I'll just put it that way. So he just claimed that this fire hurricane that we've never seen before comes in part from global warming, and that ultimately is the reason that so many people perished. Well, I have my questions for Josh Green New Deal. And let's see, Josh Green New Deal. Here are some reasons, aside from global warming, that this might have, that could contribute to why this was so bad. Let's just go on the media's idea that this was natural, all right? First of all, brush had not been cleared in an area that back in 2018, I saw reports from a ecological standpoint that that area around Lahaina had the highest risk of fire, of damaging fire. Now, I know that you were not the governor back then, but you've been the governor for 8 months. So how is it that that was not one of your top priorities? If you believe, Josh Green New Deal, that global swarming is the cause of all of the Earth's ills, wouldn't you have made that your top priority to strengthen the response and the emergency preparedness? If you personally, Josh Green, that you've said 1 million times now, at least 1,000,001 if I'm exaggerating, that you are all about the sustainable resiliency, the smart cities, the getting off of fossil fuels, which don't come from fossil. If this is what you really believe, then how is it that you personally, you're the top, it doesn't go any further than you in the state of Hawaii, yet you did not do anything to strengthen the state's response to global swarming? It doesn't make sense. Actually, none of it makes sense. So number one, you never cleared that brush, which had been on the books to be cleared for a long, long time. Number two, there were no fire breaks around that area. Even if you hadn't cleared the brush, there were, at least you could have put through the fire breaks, which many have said would have had some effect. I don't know about these unnatural fires, but in a natural incident. There were no escape routes, all right? I've been to Maui. When you go into Lahaina, there is one road in and one road out. And when I was there, it was a 2-lane road, and I think it's the same. So no escape routes in one of the highest areas with the threat of fire. And there was a fire red flag warning prior to this breaking out with your fire hurricane winds, 500 miles off the coast. So I also had eyewitnesses that I listened to say that the power lines, the poles have been rotting, and that Hawaiian Electric does not have a shutoff system like in California, where I think they shut off the power too frequently to my liking, but it is something that they do in the high winds. It's unfortunate people go without power, but their idea is that it will prevent this level of fires, if indeed these were natural. So why was there no plan in place from Hawaiian Electric that runs all of this to have a shut off emergency service? Why was there not the right kind of maintenance done on these electric poles and lines? Josh Green New Deal, is that because of global warming? Are you going to blame that on global warming as well? There was no water in the pumps when the few firemen, which I still have not heard a report, and there is nothing on the sheet of the fire chief's website there about how many crew, what number of crew were dispatched, when they were dispatched, where they were dispatched, how many trucks. All of that is a gray area. I'm getting little snippets from the Firemen's Union headquartered on Oahu. I did a little more digging. They're putting these people on the news to make it appear as though they were the local firefighters. This is the Firefighters Union coming out and saying, giving little snippets of information. There has been nothing that I have found from the chief of fire, the fire chief there, as I call him. So why was there no water in the pumps? Hadn't been tested? This also would be a question for the mayor of Maui. Why was there no preparation if you knew that this was the red fire warning? And at Lahaina in particular, the most sacred, ancient town, perhaps I'm not using the correct words, but I want to give you the sense that this was a very important area on Maui, and that had not been protected. Why is that? Is it global warming? Are they to blame? So Josh, Green New Deal, let me ask you. So global warming was the reason why that you did not do the evacuation sirens. Am I understanding that right? You're the top chief on Hawaii, and you're saying that global warming prevented the sirens from going off. Further, you're telling me that global warming was the reason why the road was closed and people were not allowed to evacuate. Was that it? It was global warming's fault? You're telling me that it was global warming's fault that no text messages went out to alert people. Why do I get text messages about a stolen car on the highway, but none of the population got a text message warning? Doesn't make sense. Why? What was it? Global warming's fault, Josh Green New Deal, that people were told not to leave the city? I have so many questions. Those are just a few of them. Friends, what questions do you have for Josh Green New Deal? Blaming, not taking any blame for himself, passing the buck, as the expression goes, so that others, including global warming, will be blamed for this level of destruction. I'm about to do a video exposing the Maui governor and how he is in bed with the WEFers. He's all about the resiliency, and you are not going to believe. Well, I'll just give you a little sneak peek. This governor wants to have a toll road for tourists. Yeah, on Maui, where the tourists only are going to pay for the toll roads. And he wants to limit the hours for visiting one of the tourist destinations called Hana. And I've been there before. It is a beautiful drive. He wants to limit the hours for people going in and out of the city. Gee, that has nothing to do with the 15-minute city, does it? No, I'm sure. Restricting people's movements, especially tourists, I'm sure that's completely constitutional. Absolutely. They can shut it down. And guess what? They can. Do you know why? What's that? Because they declared an emergency? Bingo, you're absolutely right. Kind of like the cooties hogwash. Once you declare the emergency, all bets are off. They can suspend the laws. They basically can do whatever they want, including shutting down the city, limiting access to it, declaring it off limits, hazardous. They can completely demolish your property. They can take over public property. If they wanted to right now, they could set up shop in someone's restaurant and say, we're the government. We have the authority to do it. That Josh Green New Deal and his crony there, Bisson, both of them just put into office. It's really despicable. The chief of police, Pelletier, he came from Las Vegas. We know all about that. And he just was on the scene as well, I think in 2022. And then the completely, basically, just did not do his job. The fire chief, what was he doing? Wait until I bring you a little video. Maybe I'll do that as well, a short one later, where US Fire Administration or one of these agencies comes out, and wait until you hear this interview. I think it was intentionally created exactly as they aired it. You can't make this up. So we've got Swiss Chalet is calling them actors. You know, there is a lot of that. Danielle said this was planned. Yeah, Wendy says they're all installed puppets. I think, you know, I love my Healthy Americans. It really does me good to come onto this channel and connect with you all. You left so many supportive comments. I tried to read as many as I can. These videos are getting lots of views, and I'm so grateful for that. But most of all, I'm grateful for you that you have eyes to see. I would like you to share these videos to make sure that people know what's going on. And remember, the reason why I'm doing this, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, this is an opportunity to develop our critical thinking skills. We need to learn how to read between the lies. It's very, very helpful. Here's an exercise to do right now. Go back to one of the very first news conferences that came out on August 9th and watch that again. Now that you've had a week later, you'll hear some of the stories that don't add up. They already are changing their tune. And because the initial heightened trauma and shock and emotion and distress of that time, now that it's a few days behind us, you can go back and see that with a more calm, sober mind and not so much in your emotional seat. So you're using more of your intellect. This is one of the things that the bad guys count on, is that we are going to be so distraught with these images, with the confusion. Why did they tell us the fire broke out at night? Why were we told that the children were home alone from school when it was clearly in the afternoon? And there are other things that I really want you to guard your heart. Please do not look at these distressing images of certain things. You do not have to expose yourself to it. Engaging your intellect rather than your emotions is going to help you see this more clearly. I frankly am highly skeptical of a lot of what we are being told in the news. I don't want to upset anybody by this analysis, but I'm going to be doing a video about the search and rescue. And I'll just give you plant a little seed if you want to do a little research as well. I was very troubled that again and again, they kept saying, come to the American Red Cross to give your DNA, get your DNA tested at the American Red Cross so that we can match it up with the remains. Friends, if you've ever had a loved one cremated or a beloved pet, there is no remaining DNA. You cannot match up DNA with ashes, as we're being told that's what they're finding. There may be other sadly deceased that are in different conditions. Again, I want to be very sensitive with my language and so forth. But the fact is, a lot of that doesn't add up either. We will never know the numbers. It could be far more. It could be far less. People could have gotten away. And more of this will come out as the time passes. But I am guarding my own heart. And I do know that the news thrives on chaos, confusion, fear, panic, dread, putting you in the spin cycle. I'm here to take you out of the spin cycle, to engage the intellectual mind so that the emotional center can have a little bit of some breathing room. And the other reasons why I'm bringing you this information is this is one way that we outwit the nitwits. They're much worse than nitwits, but it's just a phrase that I use. If we are informed and alert, it's a very powerful position in my mind, because then I don't feel like I'm a victim. It's like, I'm on to you. I can see through your lies. You're not going to pull the wool over my eyes. For me, that's an empowering position. I don't want to cower in fear. I don't want to live in fear. I strive to live each day fully. And I had a Healthy American ask me, Peggy, what can we do about this? Well, I personally don't have the power to stop the directed energy weapons. I don't have the power to pull those puppets out of their positions, Josh Green New Deal and the other cheats and all of that. That's not within my personal power, but I can live each day in dignity. I can refuse to go along with their Green New Deal and their 15-minute cities. I can refuse to, pay on my phone with Apple Pay and anything else that they are doing incrementally. I personally refuse to drive a car that has no ignition key. All right. I have a very old car. It's 18 years old, or maybe 17, however old it is. And there's no tracking on it. There's no computer on it. These are the personal choices that I can make to live in dignity and to render these public servants insignificant to the best of my ability. Now, if the UN comes in and takes over the United States, I can't stop that either. But I personally can refuse to comply, just like I have personally refused to comply with everything else. So being educated, being connected, and then the most important of all, guard your heart. Do not expose yourself to these horrific images. Take a break from it. If you feel that there's something you can do, sending money, I'm not going to recommend anybody that you send money to. Better is to do to a person or somebody that you know needs it. For myself, I do not do any of those GoFundMes. You will never see me personally doing a GoFundMe in terms of raising money from that. I do not. Many of you gratefully and graciously have sent me support for my lawsuit. But the point is, I'm not going to be putting up a GoFundMe for Maui. There are so many other agencies that are already doing this. Vet them closely. In my opinion, the smaller, the more local, the better. And maybe even wait a little while, because there is a lot of rush of donations at the beginning. And then after several weeks, things kind of dry up and people are really hurting. And so that's something, just, I'm only speaking for myself. You draw your own conclusions and do what's right for you. So taking action. And then the other thing that I think is really important is when we get together on this channel, many of you have told me, Peggy, I'm so grateful to hear your validation. My friends and family think that I'm off my rocker and that I am a conspiracy theorist and I don't really know what's going on, and they won't listen to me and they think I'm crazy. Thank you, Peggy, for sharing my views on this. It makes me feel that I am sane, and you're rational, you're clear-minded, you're thinking deeply, and it's very important to do so. There have been so many different scenarios that have been floated around from, number one, this was all CGI. I personally don't subscribe to that because of, I don't have enough evidence to see or to believe that that happened. It actually is a possibility. I'm not going down that road right now. The second possibility is that it happened exactly as we're shown, and it was just crazy winds and the power lines went down. And for some reason, the physics of fire have changed. Like there's no longer 24 hours in a day. There's 26 hours now. You didn't know that? Oh yeah. Well, there's lots of different genders too. So now I think it's 26 or 28 hours in a day. And now metal and steel will melt at 1400 degrees instead of 2500 degrees. And forest wildfires, which I don't like that term either, because this was really a city fire. We need to call them urban fires. They are not wildfires out in the wild. So these urban fires, these city fires, do not burn at a high enough degree Fahrenheit for the destruction that we saw, unless, of course, the physics of fire has suddenly changed. So that's one possibility. It's exactly as it happened. Josh Green New Deal is absolutely right. It's global swarming. It's to blame. And so we have to save the planet. We have to shut everything down. No more. You cannot. It's ironic, isn't it? You can't have a wood burning fire, but look at all these fires that are all out there. And you can no longer use gas. Everything has to be electric, so they can shut it off. You have to have an electric car. You can only drive at a certain number of miles. And all of that people will welcome. They will applaud. They will be so excited to do, if you know how I spell that, DEW, because of this trauma. They are willing to submit themselves to this because they don't want to go through it again. So that's a possibility. Another possibility is that this was enhanced, augmented, created. Maybe there were some sparks. Maybe they saw their opportunity and then they flipped a switch. There are so many possibilities with drones, with sound waves, with, I did not see any images of any, light beams going and hitting, but it just doesn't add up for a natural event. And so many of even the public servants have said, it looks like a bomb went off. You hear that again and again. I probably will make a little compilation of all the times we heard them say, this is the worst disaster ever. It feeds right into their global swarming narrative. There is one other possibility that some of you have emailed me, and I'm still considering it. I always like to consider all possibilities. And the way that I draw my own conclusions is I look for the evidence, I look for the facts, and then I look for the agendas, I look for the motivation. I try to connect the clots, as I say, with the actors that are there, like the Josh Green New Deal and the Maui mayor and the chief of police and all that. Like, what possibly could be their reasons for being involved in this? So I look at kind of like a detective. And then when there's enough information, and I also use my own God-given discernment and things that have happened in the past, and then I draw my own conclusion. You'll need to draw your own conclusion. Someone said, Peggy, wouldn't it be something if, in fact, and again, I'm just presenting this, it's not my conclusion, but it's something that people are considering. Wouldn't it be something if people really did evacuate, if that town in the very beginning, that there were a lot of people really did leave their homes, and that there are fewer casualties than we might think? And wouldn't it be crazy if these were the, I don't know if I can say it on this channel, I'll have to put, the actors that are paid to be at these events? Wouldn't it be crazy if they were the ones that the news reporters were interviewing, and that they were somehow in cahoots with all of this so that it would look like it was worse than it was? And, that is pretty far-fetched, I think, in some ways. Parts of it make sense to me. I do believe that there are some of these actors that are being interviewed because their stories don't add up. They're tugging on the heartstrings. There was a guy that said he was getting burned in the water, and he kept going on land and then getting burned again. And when he was on TV, it's like, I don't see any burns anywhere. And then, of course, he has his own GoFundMe, and there were lots of things that didn't add up. Like, there was no cell service, but he called his mom to have his mom call 911. And then 911 called the mom back, and then the mom called him back. And then she gave 911 his phone number. And then he had his phone in the water, and 911 texted him while he was in the water. It could happen. I don't know. I'm analyzing that one. So there are a lot of these stories that don't add up. Sadly, there are nut jobs out there that want to swoop in the midst of a catastrophe, even if it's a natural catastrophe, even if they're not paid actors. They want to swoop in, they want to swindle people, they want to get their face on TV, and they get their jollies, I guess the expression goes, by pulling the wool over people's eyes. I can't say with verifiable evidence that I have seen that, but I am questioning some of these. Now, the guy I showed you looks like an actual local Hawaiian and sounded very authentic and distraught, but some of these just don't add up. I have a clip for you of an amazing duper's delight, and I have like 100 windows open. I'm trying to find that footage again. So let me wrap up here, and I'm going to bring you another video, a little shorter video, and I think I'll do 2 more videos for you in this today, and then I will continue to bring 2 or 3 videos for you. On the weekend, I might take a break from some of this coverage, and there are some other things that are going on that I think you need to be aware of. So I may kind of bring that in as well. But it's very important that we stay on this story, because this is opening the door to the great reject from Nasal Schwab and all of his cronies. And Josh Green New Deal is like all about the UN and Hawaii. I did that video for you a couple of, either yesterday or the day before. I have a lot of videos all about that where I go through it step by step. I think it was yesterday. So I am aware of all of that, and I will continue to bring you this footage. And mark my words, this Josh Green New Deal is going to be promoted in the ranks of the Democrats. I wouldn't be surprised if for some reason they determine that what's her name? Cackling Harris? Is that the name? The president? Oh, excuse me. I mean, the vice president, Cackling Harris, right? Always cackling. They probably will pull the plug on her. The puppet masters will take her off the stage. And I wouldn't be surprised if they put this Josh Green New Deal in. Maybe not this selection season, but certainly in the future, He is going to be the one, in my opinion, that is going to try to slosh this all over us in the United States. They work through incrementalism. They've been working on this for 50 years or more. And in their own words, they talk about how this is a long-term plan. So they're not worried about next week or next month or next year or even next decade. They're talking about moving that agenda forward. They are either delusional, they are brainwashed, they are evil, or they are blackmailed, or they have such little mental capacity. I forgot to mention psychopaths, or they have such little mental capacity that they actually think that what they're doing is good. And that is the very nature of evil. It inverts the truth. And that's why I was so concerned about that Volcom sign that I showed you several videos ago. I don't know if I have that up really here again, but this came from the office of the governor. And of course, they like to invert everything. So the inverted sign to me was another one of their symbols. All right, friends, I am going to be right back with you. Give me about 5 minutes to queue up my notes and the links. We're going to be exposing the Maui mayor and what he sees for this island. It is horrifying. And then I think I will finish off with a very short video about the inconsequential, ineffective guy that is running the fire department. I'll just put it that way. I don't even want to give him the title of chief. All right, signing off now, friends. Thank you for being on board. Get on my Substack. I'm sending out some of the written analysis with links that you can click, and it's easy to share as well. All right, thank you, everybody. I'm praying for you, for all those that are affected, and I look forward to seeing you right in the upcoming broadcast.